Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome back once again to our ever ongoing lecture series on our beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastacha Deshatarine. So once again, we are continuing with our mini-series on Stimulation for Ecstatic Love, and this will be part 109. And today we'll continue to discuss the fourth quality of Krishna that distinguishes him from Lord Narayan, namely Rupa Madhuri, his extraordinary beauty, and it will be part 3 about his eyes, his lotus eyes. I would like to set the scene, the mood, by quoting a beautiful verse by Sri Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 3:3-4, where he's describing Krishna. His face is radiant with gentle smiles, and his teeth are white as jasmine flower buds. His eyes, splendidly adorned by the outline of black cosmetics, beam with sidelong glances. His garment is so lustrous that it conquers the iridescence of the golden ketaki flower. Beautified with forest flower garlands and forest mineral pigments, he enchants the minds of even the great self-controlled sages. His lips, graced by his flute as he returns from the pasture grounds, he thus forcibly steals the minds of his coward friends by the sweet melodies of that flute. Thank you, Sri Rupa Goswami. So therein we hear a reference to his eyes, again, which are more often than not referred to as lotus eyes, comparing them to the beauty, of course, of a lotus flower. Queen Kunti Dev's prayers in Srimad Bhagavatam, specifically 1.8.22, is a perfect example in this regard. She said, Nama Pankaja Nabaya, Nama Pankaja Maline, Nama Pankajane Traya, Namaste Panka Jangriye. My respectful obeisances unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. I'd like to recite that again. My respectful obeisances unto you, O Lord, whose abdomen is marked with a depression like a lotus flower, who are always decorated with garlands of lotus flowers, and whose glance is as cool as the lotus, and whose feet are engraved with lotuses. So Pankaja Netraya literally means one whose glance is as cooling as a lotus flower. But it's interesting that while researching for this lecture, I found a number of references comparing Krishna's eyes to other wonderful entities, not just the lotus flower, that I would like to share with you today. For example, in Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Shesha, means his commentaries on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we hear Krishna's eyes compared to a chikora bird, chikora birds that derive great pleasure by looking at the moon of Srimati Radharani's face. Chakora jai nob Krishna netar yor api poshaka mukha bimba sa radhaya purnas chandra ivap narab, he writes. It's really beautiful. The face of Sri Radha is like a superior moon which nourishes the two chakora defeating eyes of Krishna. Not lotus eyes, but two chakora defeating eyes of Krishna. And I was reading, sometimes Krishna's eyes seem to turn into a tongue. This is explained in Raghunath Das Goswami's Stavavali in the section called Vishaka Nanda Binda Stotram, text number 74. Krishna Netra Lasan Jiva Leka Vaktra Prabham Rita. He writes, the tongue of Lord Krishna's glistening eyes drink the nectar of the beauty of Sri Radha's face. not a lotus eyes, but the tongue of Lord Krishna's glistening eyes drinks the nectar of the beauty of Sri Radha's face. Now further research in Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Nikunja Keli Viruddha Vali, which we've referred to on many occasions, there's text 16, where Krishna's eyes are compared to cups, to two cups. Nishkashitam Shmita Shudham Prashabham Ramanyaha Krishna Svandeta Chashak Ena Biban Mudeshat. He writes, the nectar of the smile of Sri Radha is being drunk by the eyes of Krishna that have turned into cups. Not lotuses, cups. The nectar of the smile of Sri Radha is being drunk by the eyes of Krishna that have turned into cups, two cups. And if in Kavi Karnapura's Govinda Lilamritam, 1520, Krishna's eyes, it's described, behave like security guards. Shri Krishna Neto Dvaya Vira Bharya Pradar Sanat Eva Bhayad Ishvasha. When the two brave security guards of Krishna's eyes come in front of the two warrior leaders of Sri Radha's eyes, the two warrior leaders fled away. Thus the remaining army, the remaining senses of Sri Radha's body fell into disarray. Security guards. Now, an interesting note here, something else I came across. There's a beautiful description in Sri Rupa Goswami's Padyavali, one of our favorites, text 155, where he describes how one time, seeing Krishna's beautiful form, it had a magical effect on the gopis. Viloka Krishnam Brajava Netra Sarvan Dhiyanam Na Nayat Evam Vam Eva. Quote, seeing Krishna, the beautiful-eyed ladies of Braj desired all their senses to turn into eyes so that all of them could glance at Krishna. Eyes, eyes, eyes. Seeing Krishna, the beautiful-eyed ladies of Braj desired all their senses to turn into eyes so that all of them could glance at Krishna. So in these ways, and more, we can appreciate how beautiful and powerful are Krishna's eyes, his lotus eyes. But Shastra describes that just as beautiful and potent is when Krishna glances at his devotees with these lotus eyes. That's called a sidelong glance. And that sidelong glance is immortalized in the famous verse we find, well, in several places in Shastra, including Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 5, verse 224. Many of you will know this verse, but there's a glance in there. My dear friend, if you are indeed attached to your worldly friends, do not look at the smiling face of Lord Govinda as he stands on the bank of the Jamuna at Keshigat. Casting sidelong glances, he places his flute to his lips, which seem like newly blossomed twigs. His transcendental body, bending in three places, appears very bright in the moonlight. Wow. You know, we hear his glances. The eyes are amazing, but the glance of those eyes is very powerful. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:46-21 describes that just thinking or remembering that glance, sidelong glance of the Lord, brings an auspicious result. What to speak of receiving it, just, if you just think of it or remember it, it's very auspicious. For the gopis say, as we remember the wonderful deeds Krishna performed, his playful sidelong glances, his smiles and his words, O Uddhava, we forget all our material engagements. From the lotus lips of the gopis. Now, Krishna's glances are described in detail by a devotee called Digvijaya Acharya. I had to do some research because whenever we speak in spiritual circles, we have to give reference to where we're getting our knowledge from. So Digvijaya is a well-known Acharya from the Nimbarka Sampradaya. it's interesting, originally he was a Mayavadi, but after getting defeated in a debate with a scholar, a Brajbasi, in Vrindavan, he surrendered. And he eventually became a powerful and actually much loved devotee in Vrindavan himself. Now, in one of his writings, he described Krishna's glances as follows. Glances of Keshava are Tribhuvana Mohana. Glances of Krishna are Tribhuvana Mohana, which means that they can attract all the three worlds. These glances are sometimes sharp, coolant, furious, soft, merciful, excited, restless, focused, or blissful. These glances, and we're getting into details here, these glances of Krishna are sometimes sharp, coolant, furious, soft, merciful, excited, restless, focused, or blissful. The mid-16th century Brajabasi poet Madhavadas explained Krishna's glances as follows. Krishna's glances are infinite in number. Infinite in number. Even the demigod of numbers, Lord Ganesh, often gets confused counting the variety of Krishna's glances. I offer my dandavats to the Braja Gopis who are victorious in catching each and every glance of Lord Madhusudan within their hearts. Wow. Now yet another Brajbasi poet, Kishore Das, he's from the Haridas Sampradaya in Vrindavan. He also, I found, described Krishna's glances very beautifully. He wrote, while lifting Govardhan Hill, Lord Krishna's glance was felt by various devotees in many different ways. While lifting Govardhan Hill, Lord Krishna's glance was felt by various devotees in many different ways, because all the Brajbasis had assembled under Govardhan Hill for protection. So he goes on, while talking to the cowherd boys in a cheerful way, his glance pierced the hearts of the gopis in Madhurya Bhav. Now he's talking to the cowherd boys, but his glance pierced the hearts of the gopis in Madhurya Bhav. They're looking at him, watching him. That same glance was playing in the lap of Mother Yasoda. That same glance was playing in the lap of Mother Yasoda. That same glance was petting the cows under the shelter of Mount Giriraj. That same glance was making Lord Indra shake in fear. That same glance was showering the hearts of yogis in bliss. And that same glance is pleasing the heart of the poor poet, Kishore Das. Now, according to the poet, he was also a scholar, Lalit Kishore, Krishna's glances are Naina Bhangima. Naina Bhangima. It's a Sanskrit term. It means literally artistic glances. Artistic glances. And he goes into detail describing various types of glances of the Lord. It's amazing. First there's Gurnit Naina. Gurnit Naina. It means, which he describes as intoxicated eye glances. Intoxicated eye glances. And he says these glances are seen during Krishna's pastimes with Srimati Radharani and other gopis. Then there's Vilambita Naina. These are very slow and sleepy glances. When Krishna rests on a Vedi, I looked it up, a Vedi means a couch-like bed, after night of pastimes in the Vrindavan forest, he comes back, and Vilambita Naina. Those glances are slow and sleepy glances. Then there's Chanchala Naina. Chanchala Naina means restless glances seen while sporting in forest with his cowherd boyfriends. And then there's a little P.S. there, or sometimes in a playful mood with the gopis. Then there's Dhrutanayana. Dhrutanayana means fast or clever glances seen while Krishna is performing mischievous pastimes like hiding, stealing butter, disguising himself, or playing. Then there's Sharangnayana. Sharangnayana means doe-like glances, which are restless or searching. They're seen when Krishna is searching for his lost cows in the forest, or for Sri Radha when feeling intense separation from her. And then finally he says, or when his kite is high in the sky. He's flying his kite, he's glancing. Then there's Vira Vaidagdhanena. Vira Vaidagdhanena. It means cunning warrior-like glances, which are seen when Krishna is wrestling with his cowherd boys in the early morning. Not afternoon, but in the early morning. Vira Vaidagdhanena. Warrior-like glances, which are seen when he's wrestling with his cowherd boys in the morning. So specific. Bhakti is so specific. Then Jwala Vati Netra. Fired up glances seen when Krishna kills the demons sent by Kamsa to Vrindavan. Jwala means like fire. These glances appear like fire in his eyes. Then Akulaya Naina. Akulaya Naina. This means glances seen when Krishna is hungry for food or crying for Mother Yasoda. These glances, he's looking everywhere. Where's something to eat? Or where's my mother? And Ananda Viraha Naya. Blissful glances seen when Krishna is satisfying the Brajavasis with his gazes. He's looking and they're happy, so he's happy. Then Ashcharya or Adbhuta Naina. Surprised glances with wide open eyes. And he writes, these glances are seen when Krishna hears the glorious katha of Lord Ramachandra breaking Lord Shiva's bow. That's a detail of a detail. Ascharya Adbhuta Naina. Surprised glances with wide open eyes. And these glances are seen when Krishna hears, perhaps his mother's reading to him at night when he's trying to go to sleep, the glorious katha of Lord Ramachandra, specifically breaking Lord Shiva's bow. Then wide open. And our wonderful poet Lalit Kishore concludes, my heart feels victorious when I see Takit Netra. Takit Netra, meaning Krishna's miserable and unhappy glances which please Sri Radha when she is in her mood of mana or anger. She's angry at him. Krishna is like miserable and unhappy because she's displeased, so you can imagine his glances like that. Now, a lot of poetry today. The poet Govinda Swami, one of the Astachaps or the poets of Ballabhacharya, we've quoted them on several occasions, describes in one of his poems a very beautiful scene during Holi, the throwing of the colors, colored dyes, which includes Krishna's loving glances. Somehow I came across it. I just love this. Listen. Behold the beautiful lad of Vrindavan, the uplifter of Govardhan Hill. His restless glances are shooting arrows of love and ecstasy to the innocent gopis who come to the banks of the Jamuna to fill their water pots. Lost in his hypnotizing glances, the chaste gopis of Braj are unable to fill their pots. Thus they stand stunned on the river bank. Wet from the water of the Jamuna, their feet are cold and their hands shiver. With perspiration on their foreheads and fast-beating hearts, they get lost in his glance. Over that day, we get lost in the glance of the Lord. What more is there to say? Such is the effect of the sidelong glances of Gopal, who playfully pierces the hearts of the Braja Yuvatis, describing the gopis, the Braja Yuvatis, the young maidens of Braj. Poor Govinda says, I sacrifice my everything to that player of Holi, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. Now, this is interesting. We could analyze from different perspectives Krishna's glances. Just as the effect of Krishna's glances can be sweet, attractive, and charming, they can also be the opposite. That is described by Kavi Jagannath. Kavi Jagannath, he was a medieval poet in Braj. who wrote hundreds of poems about Krishna in Vrindavan, and they're still read or sung in many of the temples in Braj. Here's one. Subal said to Madhu Mangal, "O brother, look at the furious glance of Krishna as he kills the Vyomasura demon. His eyebrows are furrowed towards his nose. The redness of his eyes are like fireballs shooting from a cannon. His eyes are filled with tears of anger. The corners of his eyes are invoking the Lord of Death, Mahakala. His eyelashes behave like pointed daggers smeared in blood. His wide open eyes are causing distress in the gardens of the demons, in the gardens of the demons. Look at poor Vyomasura, who was just killed with a fire shooting as glances from Krishna's eyes." Poet Jagannath says, "May those fire-shooting glances of Krishna protect all devotees from enemies and from snakes." Hare Krishna. Wow. So much nectar to meditate on. So let us finish today with a verse and purport of Srila Prabhupada from Srimad Bhagavatam 424, verses 47 and 48. The chapter is entitled Chanting the Song Sung by Lord Shiva. It's so beautiful. And again, we'll hear about glances. The verse is, "The Lord is super excellently beautiful on account of his open and merciful smile and his sidelong glance upon his devotees. His black hair is curly and his garments, waving in the wind, appear like flying saffron pollen from lotus flowers. His glittering earrings, shining helmet, bangles, garland, ankle bells, waist belt, and various other bodily ornaments, combined with his conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower, to increase the natural beauty of the Kaustubha pearl upon his chest." We often hear the Kaustubha gem there, it's described as a pearl. So that's the verse, and here's Srila Prabhupada's purport. The word prahasita panga, referring to Krishna's smile and sidelong glances of his devotees, specifically applies to his dealings with the gopis. Krishna is always in a joking mood, where he increases the feelings of conjugal rasa in the hearts of the gopis. The conch shell, club, disc, and lotus flower can either be held in his hands or seen on the palms of his hands. According to palmistry, the signs of a conch shell, club, lotus flower, and disc mark the palms of great personalities and especially indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Very fitting to finish today with a quote from Srila Prabhupada about Krishna's glances. So thank you, Prabhus. Let's see what we come up with next week. Maybe something more about his eyes or something more about sidelong glances. But whatever it is, it'll be a stimulation for ecstatic love on the path back home to Goloka Vrindavan. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radharama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yanya ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe Shyam. Glorious to Sri Prabhupada. Thank you.